Next part of the webinar is all about getting ready for your first payroll of the new tax year. Now, if you need to get on and do this before you've completed all of the steps in payroll year end, you can absolutely do so. You would just need to follow the steps that I'm going to go through in this checklist. And then when you're ready to go back and complete year end, simply change your process date back to the 5th of April, and then you can return to any of those year end tasks you still need to do. But let's now have a look at the steps you'll need to complete before you process your first period of the year. So 4 steps in this checklist. Number 1 is to double check that you are using the correct version of the software. So that is version 31.00.231. And you can check that version number if you click Help and then About. And on the support page that opens, have a look under Program Details to find your version number from there. Second step is to update your employees' tax codes. So there'll be one global change to remove week 1, month 1 flags, and then you'd apply any individual tax code notices that you may have received. Step 3 is to apply for employment allowance, if applicable, in the new tax year. And there have been some significant changes to employment allowance, so it is available to more employers moving forward. And then step 4, again, if applicable, is to set up small employers relief. And once you've been through this checklist, you're ready to get on and process period 1. So let's talk about the tax codes. Now, because the personal allowance remains frozen, and it has been frozen since 2021, it does mean that there's no automatic uplift to tax codes that end in L, M, or N. And the emergency tax code for 25 to 26 remains as it was, which is still 1257L, representing that frozen personal allowance of £12,570. However, you do still need to clear any week 1, month 1 flags for existing employees' tax codes so that their tax calculates on a cumulative basis with effect from the start of the new tax year. So best way to do that is by running the global changes option. You may also need to make changes to individual employee tax codes, depending on their circumstances, if you've received any tax code notices. So these are known as P9 notices. They usually come through in February or March, and they'll tell you any changes to the tax code that apply from the 6th of April. If you get these online, you can apply them using the secure mailbox in Sage 50 Payroll. If you get them in the post, you would just make the changes manually. So I want to show you these first 2 steps. I just bring those slides down. Now, first of all, to check your version number, if you go to Help and then About, you'll find it under Program Details. So you can see mine is the latest version, 31.00.231. And because I'm now setting up the new tax year, I do need to make sure that my process date is set into the new tax year. So if I click onto Change Process Date, mine is set to the first day of the new tax year, so I'm correctly in 2025 to 26. Now, looking at the tax codes, we can see the current tax codes in the employee list, just in this tax code column. And for my employees, I just have one of them that's on a month 1 tax code, and that could have been a recent starter that maybe didn't have a P45, or there could be any other reason why they've been put on that code. But moving into the new tax year, the week 1, month 1 flags need to be cleared. And as I say, the best way to do this so that you don't forget anyone is to do it using global changes. So first of all, make sure all of your employees are in view. So have a quick check of your criteria to make sure you're not excluding anyone on hold, on holiday, or current year leavers. And then in the outline window, just here, you should ensure that you've selected the All Employees folder. So you can get that by clicking Outline, and I now know that all employees are in view. To do the global change, I'm going to click onto Clear and then Swap. And you can see that has highlighted everyone. And then you go to the Tasks option, come down to Global Changes, you go over to Tax Codes, and then it's this option at the bottom to clear the week 1, month 1 flag. So when I click on that, it confirms that it will clear the flag for the selected employees. I'm going to click Yes to continue. and it confirms the number of employees that were updated. And if you keep an eye on this tax code here for my last employee, as soon as I click OK, you'll see that it's now removed that month one flag. So that is the only global change that you need to do. But as I say, you may receive individual tax code notices. And if you get yours online, you'll be able to view them and apply them directly from Sage 50 Payroll. So to use the secure mailbox, you would go to the e-submissions tasks here in the bottom left-hand corner, and then you would open up IR Secure Mailbox, which will then open the mailbox in your software. And if it doesn't automatically check for and download new mail, you just need to click on this button at the top, which will then connect to your online mailbox with HMRC, and then it will retrieve the latest notices. So when I do that, you can see that it has retrieved 3 P9 notices, as you can see in this folder on the left-hand side. And when I select it, I can see that these came through in February, and I've got a notice of coding for these 3 employees. So if you haven't got many of them, you could open them one at a time. So you can either double click or select the notice and click open. It'll tell you the change that you need to make. So this will be the new tax code and effective from date. And then you can go ahead and click apply to automatically make that change. And you can even do that ahead of time because it has an effective from date. So that new tax code won't come into play until your process date is set to the 6th of April or later. Now, if you don't want to do it one at a time, if you've got quite a few of these to apply, you can select multiple notices in this screen. So if you want to select everything, you've got these little icons to clear and then swap the selection. You can see all 3 of them are highlighted now. Or if it's just some of them in the list you want to select, you could hold down the Shift key on your keyboard. And then if you click on the first and last notice in a list, it'll then highlight everything in between. So this way I can open all 3 at the same time. I can see what the tax code changes are, and I can print this screen if I need to. I'm just going to go ahead and apply the change by clicking apply. I'm going to click yes to continue. And you can see that those 3 tax code changes are now successful. So I'm going to close out of the secure mailbox. And if I just show you one of the employees who had a tax code change, I'm going to go onto the employment tab. And you can see it now shows that new tax code, 1257L. And if I want to see a history of the previous tax codes, I can click on the plus icon. And I can see that previously it was at 1288L. So that change, effective from the 6th of April, has now been made to that employee. If you don't get them online, you can apply the change manually in the employee record. So to do that, just open the employee record and go on the employment tab. You would then click the plus sign next to the tax code, and you would add the latest tax code you've received, and then you can type it in just here, and you can enter your effective from date, which for a P9 notice would be the 6th of April, and that will then be added manually to be used from that date. So whichever way you get your notices, if it's online, you can apply them from the mailbox. If you get them in the post, you would do it in the employee record. So that covers the change to tax codes. The next step on our checklist is to apply for employment allowance if your business is eligible for it. Now, the employment allowance is a government incentive to employ staff. It's available to most employers, but there are some exclusions that apply, and it allows you to reduce the amount of employers' national insurance that you pay each tax year up to the annual allowance amount. Now, previously, it was £5,000 per year, but it is increasing in 2025 to 26 to £10,500 per year. So that has more than doubled, and it could be vital support to offset some of the other increases in employers' national insurance. Now, it has also been opened up to more employers, as previously there was a threshold of employers' national insurance to be eligible for the allowance. So there was a limit of £100,000 of employers' national insurance per year to be eligible for employment allowance, but that has now been removed. So it is open to more employers. You're not restricted by your total employer's NI. And because it's been opened up to more employers, it no longer counts as state aid. So the state aid rules no longer apply when you make your submission. So if you're eligible for this, you can apply for it anytime from the 6th of March. So applications are open now. Your process date must be set in the new tax year in order to do this. And you'll be sending an EPS submission and then selecting a box to confirm that you are eligible. Now, I will quickly just run through the exclusions. So it is not available to public bodies or businesses doing more than half their work in the public sector. And it can't be used for companies with one director who's the only employee liable for employer NI, so single director companies. If you're a group of companies or charities, only one company in the group can claim the allowance. So you would choose the company that's most likely to use the full employment allowance. So let's take a look at how you'd set this up. Just returning to the demo now. So I already have my process date set in the new tax year. So I'm going to go to my company tasks and then into settings. And from the details tab, this is where I find the option to apply for employment allowance, EA. So all you need to do is to click on that button and you would select not applicable to the state aid question. So it doesn't apply in the new tax year. You would then click on to submit and you'll then be prompted to send an employer payment summary, an EPS. Just do at the start of the tax year, and that then covers you for the rest of this year. So I'm going to click on to continue, where it shows the gateway registration and company details. And then when I click submit, you can see the tax year for this submission is 25-26. And this will be the EPS that's marked yes in the employment allowance field. So Alice did the final submission of the year. I'm doing the first submission of the new year, and this is to apply for my employment allowance. Click on to submit, and that EPS is then sent to HMRC. Once that submission's complete, all you then need to do is to close the confirmation screen and then tick the box to confirm that you're eligible for employment allowance. Now, this message just lets you know that you won't get a confirmation letter for this. And if you're part of a group, only one company or charity in the group can claim it. So have a read through that and click OK. And then to save the company settings, click OK again. So that is now set up. And when I run my P32 report for month one, when I've completed month one's payroll, I'll then be able to start reducing my employer NI. So it will show how much I've claimed for the employment allowance, and I'll keep claiming that until I've used the full £10,500. So that is your employment allowance. Definitely worth checking if you qualify for that now. You can find more information in our knowledge base article and also on the guidance from gov.uk. So final step to get ready for the new tax year is to set up small employers relief if your business qualifies for this. Now, this is different to employment allowance. It's in no way related. And it's a relief that you get when reclaiming statutory parental payments, such as maternity, adoption, or paternity pay. And you would qualify for small employers relief if your total Class 1 national insurance contributions were £45,000 or less in the tax year before the qualifying or matching week. So it's worth checking this at the start of each tax year to see if you are still eligible for it or whether you're not. And you'll need to tick a box in your company settings to indicate that you are if you're going to be claiming this. Now, if you don't get this, you still claim back 92% of your statutory parental payments. But with small employers relief, you get 100% of the statutory pay plus a further 8.5% as NI compensation. Now that used to be 3%, so you used to get 103% back as a small employer. That's going up to 108.5% in the new tax year. So you can read more about what it is and whether you would qualify from the link on the screen, but let's just have a look at where you would set this up. So first of all, if you want an easy way of checking your total Class 1 national insurance contributions for a previous tax year, here's one way you could do it. So from the payroll tasks, if you just change your process date back to the 5th of April, back into the previous year, and then have a look through your payroll links for the P32 report. And normally you run this 1 month at a time to work out your payment to HMRC. But if you run it for the full year, so from month 1 to 12, you can then easily check your gross national insurance, item 4, for the tax year just ended. And in this example, £23,666 is below that £45,000 threshold. And that confirms that my payroll still qualifies for small employers relief. So I would just set my process date back into the new tax year. And if I go to company and then settings, I can go ahead and tick this box, confirming that I'm eligible for small employers relief. So I am actually currently reclaiming statutory maternity pay for an employee on maternity leave. So I need to make sure that that box is ticked before I process any pay for them in the new tax year. So that is your small employers relief. And if you've completed those 4 steps, you're then ready to get on and process your payroll for your first pay date in 2025 to 26.